and welcome. It's Owigo TV here. How are you doing? It's been a while, right? It's been 2 days. How's the day coming? 2025. I hope you started on a very beautiful note for you. Because for me, it's actually been an amazing year already. So, welcome aboard. Let's get about this year as though we are in it to win it. Because it's no other option, right? We go in, we go hard. So that by the time it's December again, you look back and be like, yo, I actually did myself a lot of good. My name is Owigo. By the way, you already know that. And I have with me a guest in the studio. His name is Ekwuene John Paul. He's a crime prevention analyst and also a criminal justice reform analyst. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much, Owigo.
Good to have you.
Glad to
really
be here.
good. So, we're talking about, criminal justice system, what it entails, what it means, how, it operates in Nigeria, what are the international best standards or, expectancy levels, and then where exactly are we also in this part of the world. So, first of all, let us start. For starters, right, when we talk about criminal justice system, what does it mean?
Thank you very much for having me. I don't actually believe in international best practice because when it comes to issue of crime, crime is relative. What could actually constitute crime here may not exactly be what constitutes crime in other places. For example, of course, you know that there are some places that they are cannibals. Human meat is very easy for them to consume, eat. But in some places, no, you can't do that. So when it comes to crime, talking about crime and analyzing crime, causes of crime and the consequences of that, I would always want to relate it down to the environment where I see myself. I don't like putting it to say international best practice because what is good for you may not actually be good for me. So talking about the system, when we talk about criminal justice system, it's all about a system that have all that's encompass all that establishes, talking about the prisons, talking about the judiciary, talking about the law enforcement. And when I talk about law enforcement, I talk about all the enforcement agents. But whenever criminal justice matter is discussed, police is always in the forefront. But that doesn't exactly mean that other law enforcement agents are not inclusive. So these are the umbrella, the system that actually makes up the criminal justice system. The correctional center, which we usually know as the prisons, the law enforcement agent with the police actually stands in, and the court, which is the judicial representative. I will also like adding to this criminal justice system to say that the legislators, the lawmakers, because of the laws that they make, is the one that we enforce. It's the law that we interpret, the judiciary interpret, and the law enforcement enforce. So including the legislators into the system is not also a bad idea. Yeah,
because those laws that they make at the end of the day, right, we make or mar how the justice system will eventually go. Now, since we're narrowing it down to Nigeria specifically, let's take the justice that is inside of it. Yes. Because if you want to divide it, right, we take criminal out for a bit. We're not trashing it. We also want to. We know what that means, but there's justice reform
attached to criminal. Now, let me tell you today, we're going to tell all our listeners, when you talk about criminal justice, that is exactly the slight difference from what we'll call criminology. The criminology aspect of that is studying what actually lead to crime and the consequences of crime to that society. When it comes to criminal justice, I tell you today, you know that a criminal or a suspect, not a criminal, because it's only the court of competent jurisdiction have the right to certify anybody criminal. Of course, the Nigerian Constitution have backed it up that every individual, even caught at the act, is a suspect until proven guilty. So even a criminal has a right. Even a criminal deserves justice as well as the victim of that crime. So when you talk about criminal justice, what it means is that the victim deserves justice. Even the criminal also deserves a way of giving judgment to him in such a manner that his own right is not actually tampered with.
So that's like saying fair hearing for all.
Fair hearing for all. Fair hearing for all. Of course, the Constitution supports that. He's just a suspect, even when such individual is caught at the act. is still a suspect.
Oh, really?
And you don't even have the right at the moment of apprehending the person to say that he's a criminal. You know, sometimes when you see when you go to the law enforcement agents, taking for example police, once somebody is apprehended, at the moment they label him a criminal. Such person could sue you.
So how about those people who eventually go ahead to lynch? We
don't jungle justice aspect
exactly.
Of that. The jungle justice aspect.
We don't catch thief, milk by him, and then everybody
such is an aspect that I would tell you today that you tamper on the right of that individual.
Really, and
he is just a suspect at the moment. I'm not actually advocating to say that I'm supporting what the person did, but what I'm trying to establish is I'm trying to marry the criminal and the justice aspect of that. The rights that that person you have caught at the act has is similar to that right of the victim of such crime. You allow that person. It is not within your own law. The law is not on you. It is not incumbent on you to certify the fact that that person had actually done that, and you had to unleash jungle justice on such individual. What is expected of you is when you have caught the person doing that, take that person, hand the person over to the law enforcement agency, which is the police, because the police is the first point of call of any act that is inimical, that is challenging our law. The police now take it up within the 24, 48 hours, taking such individual to court with the prosecutor standing in for that, and the process of prosecuting the person begins. And when the person gets to the court and it is certified beyond reasonable doubt that that person is guilty of that, it is the court where the person is taken to would label that person a criminal, and the punishment begins.
The kind of punishment that he should or deserve, that he deserves.
So when you are talking about criminal justice reform, all that I have actually mentioned to you and the things that we are not getting right, starting from even on the streets, the society needs to understand that they don't even have that right to unleash such treatment on the person because he's caught at the act. If that person had known, if it is explained to the wider society better, just the way I'm actually saying it today, for anybody listening to us, you have actually caught somebody taking somebody's phone and you think that it is just within your right to unleash mayhem, beat the person.
The law
doesn't allow that.
There was a situation, I think, very recently, right? I think Bielsa or thereabouts, they said they've been out of power for quite a while. And you know that kind of thing is everybody in the society that is angry.
Yes.
And they eventually caught the thieves that are stealing the armored cable from their transformers and all of that. So together, it's like anger on that the entire society.
Of course, you know that what Nigerians are into now. Everybody is angry.
Exactly. And then they unleashed on the so-called, people who the suspects that they caught at the time. Helpfully, the police was able to intervene, but he was already beaten to a pulp. You get so you've heard it right now from the experts that it is
the human rights aspect of that individual is tampered with because he has the opportunity, he has the right of fair hearing,
and you didn't grant him fair hearing.
You didn't even grant him the opportunity to.
If that person is found guilty, right, of maybe stealing those
what you accused him of,
can he still go back and sue that his rights were breached, that he wasn't given a right to fair hearing before that?
Certainly, by the time it's established that the person had committed that crime, you don't have the right again to sue because it's already the court has already labeled you that. The court has already pronounced you being guilty of what you are accused of. But what we are trying to establish is this: there is need for the society to begin to understand that jungle justice is not the best.
Sure.
Of course, I know that all of us are hungry and angry, but that is not the reason why you take laws into your hand, because the law doesn't support that.
All right, now what would you say about our judicial system in Nigeria, and then prosecuting criminals? The timeliness with which this is done or not done, right? We're having over congestion of our correctional services, and when you go there, in some cases, they'll tell you that there are people who have been awaiting trial for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, awaiting trial, thereby congesting these correctional services. What would you say about our justice system?
That is exactly why some of us experts are actually advocating For us, the system needs to look inward to begin to look for alternative in the congestion that the judges are overstretched. The police also are overstretched. You can imagine when a case is taken to the court. Of course, you know that there are some instances where they expedite that. They could give judgment to such case speedily. Election matters, you see, it doesn't last long. It's over.
You don't go.
But when it comes to criminal-related matter, they begin to stretch it. The system is actually trying, but there are a lot of things that we need to begin to inculcate on that. Somebody like me, I'm actually an advocate of injecting what we call ADR in criminal justice system. And what is ADR? If I have stolen your phone and I am caught on that, of course, such could actually have issues that could actually trigger to that. If such harm is not actually so severe, if the harm that I caused you in taking your phone is not so severe, of course, such is technically done in police station, but you may not actually know.
Oh, really?
You and I could actually sit together, we'll talk about that, and it will save the system a lot of resources that will spend prosecuting matters.
So we can say that's what we call out-of-court
settlement, injection of that.
Before we even go to court, let's just go settle.
Within the police setting, even in a court. There are some cases that could actually take to the court, and the magistrate or the judge could say, can you actually look at this outside the courtroom?
Yeah. If you're not able to settle in another 3 or 4 months, then you come back. Or even if you settle, you still come back and prosecute.
And you discover that such thing is actually not always given to the poor, but given to the rich. You remember what they call the plea bargain. It's an opportunity to decongest the system as well. And if the system could actually begin to consider in a certain or community issues being discussed, settled before the law enforcement agents could actually get involved, even in murder matter, in murder case, an alternative dispute resolution could actually be injected on that. Ask me how. Some time ago, we were told about a certain man. I don't know if I'm permitted to call the name or what is she called now? A singer, the woman that used to sing for Dunamit. What is her name again? Osinachi Nwachukwu. You know, somebody like me had actually looked at that case, and I am thinking that even though it's a murder case, as alleged, because as alleged is very important. As of now, that matter is still in court. It has not been concluded. So as alleged, there are some possibility of injecting an alternative dispute resolution, even when it comes to murder case. Ask me how. The woman was married. She had a husband and also have kids. Now the law says that if you kill, you will be killed. Let's assume, but not accepting that the man killed the woman. Now the woman is dead. The children are left with only their father. If the law could actually take up the man again, kill the man, what exactly becomes the fate of the kids?
You're left with no one. What
exactly becomes the fate? And you know that the trauma and the psychological effect of remembering that their mother was killed by their father, and the government actually took their father as well, and they can't say the father no more. The effect will be on them. So there are some cases that an alternative dispute resolution could be injected into the criminal justice system, and it is also part of the reform agenda we're actually talking about.
In cases of terrorism, can you also apply alternative dispute resolution? Can it also come into play?
You know, Nigeria is a system that I have to let you know today. When you study the insecurity and the problem that Nigeria is having today, they are all ideology. It's ideological issues. And ideological issue is very difficult to handle. For example, the southeastern part of Nigeria, what is fueling what is happening there is ideology.
The ideology of being marginalized.
Ideology that had actually that had lingered for more than 50 years. Now, there is a particular program I did in terrorism, and I discovered that even in the northeast and spread to the northwest, the terrorism aspect of that side is also anchored on ideology. Some of them say that Western education is bad, and that is the Boko Haram.
But that's how it started. Is that what it still is?
Well, I can actually tell you that at this point, it might have been hijacked. Of course, The representative of the army actually said the other day that there are some international interference on that, and he kept wondering
That was Chief of Defense Staff, yeah?
How come the terrorists are having
foreign
currencies and the rest of them. So we could actually look it from that perspective.
Yeah.
But the soldiers are actually working hard. But getting back to what you actually talked about, if alternative dispute resolution could actually be injected on that. Some countries, some international countries do discuss with terrorists. They don't negotiate with them.
They do.
They're a kind of swap.
But they'll come out and tell you that they
But sometimes they will tell you that we deal with them, we send them to their God and rest of them. But behind the camera, they talk about that. But every problem in the world has a cause.
Because Israel guys, I would say we saw prisoner swap.
Yes, prisoner swap is also part of it. It's an alternative dispute resolution.
Hostage versus prisoner swap.
Of course, even in America they do it a lot.
Exactly,
they do it a lot, but they don't discuss. But what I'm actually
and all those are also forms of alternative dispute
resolution in criminal justice system. It's part of the reform that could be injected on that. But what I'm trying to say is that Nigeria case is very peculiar. I am thinking that we all need to look inward to know exactly the root cause. As a criminologist, what exactly is the reason why all these things are coming up? What exactly? If the Southeasterners are saying that they are being marginalized, why don't we sit on the round table and look at how are they being marginalized? If our youths are being killed in the name of terrorists and whatsoever, or being used because they are vulnerable in the north,
why are they vulnerable?
Why are they vulnerable? Can we just sit down and begin to look on how we could use an alternative to promote this crime prevention aspect of this? There are a lot of alternatives to that. Social development needs to begin to come in place. Of course, the kinetic aspect of fighting crime in Nigeria had failed. Why don't we begin to look at the non-kinetic aspect of that?
But would you say the kinetic has actually failed? Would you say it has completely failed?
Well, to this, it has not actually completely failed, but you and I know that even at the current budget of 2025, defense
has a huge chunk of it.
It's highest of that. And this is exactly the trend, what we have been investing to see how we can manage this problem.
And doesn't guarantee that, despite the fact that it's highest in the budget, right? Doesn't still guarantee that will be the end of it.
If you have a child and your child keep misbehaving and you keep flogging, at some point, won't you keep the cane and know exactly what the issue is? Get down to the roots and know exactly what it is. Politicians, get down to the root and know what the problem is. Individuals, get down to the root and know what the problem is. Philanthropists, get down to the root and know what the problem is. There is a problem somewhere. And what exactly is that? Human capital development needs to be activated. If you have the resources, please, that boy on your street there, you think it's nobody and you don't have anything to do with him, invest in him. Taking your child abroad thinking that your child is safe, don't forget, your child will still return to those people that you have abandoned thinking that they don't have future and your child is future. Bullet doesn't know whoever.
So as it stands now, right? We've talked about the fact that defense gets a huge chunk of our budget every year. We know that. And then we've also seen, instances where people have said there's a conspiracy somewhere. Some people are, conspiring with others, just like the CDS we heard recently was, responding to international journalists and said that somehow there seems to be some international conspiracy. If international conspiracy is involved, right, and then we are dealing with it locally, how can we get to the root of the matter, knowing or not having like a complete control of the international dimension of it, but we only have the local control of it?
I believe you can have the control locally and internationally. Don't forget that there is what you call diplomatic handling of matters. If you have actually fingered any nation that is fueling your problem in your own house, why don't you sit, discuss with them, tell them the implications of things that they are doing to you? Remember, a certain young man in Finland was actually allegedly say that he was causing problem from where he was. But what eventually happened? It was discussed. And today we are told that he's within the government custody at the moment he was arrested. So if us down here had discovered that the problem we're having in the north as it concerns crime, criminality and insecurity has an international interference, the government can look inward and know exactly where it's coming from and establish discussion with them, establish a kind of way of handling it from international aspect of that. But that doesn't actually worry me so much. What worries me is that those people that are vulnerable, that are being used, that are inside the country. Because you and I now, I am not sure if anybody can approach you and ask you to come and get involved in such. Because you are too busy. You have a lot of things that preoccupy your mind.
So come and this is
you cannot do that. Okay, is it me that could actually put bomb around me now? That will not actually happen to me because, number one,
you're busy.
I am educated.
Yeah.
Number two, I am exposed.
Why is it
Number three, I came from a very sound home that my parents had invested knowledge in me, which I cannot just disappoint them in the future. So when I have all these things in mind,
people looking up to you,
children
up to who you have to take responsibility for.
So we need to look inward to cut down the vulnerability of those people. If people are using them, why don't I work to see that they are busy, that they will not be used? So I don't so much believe in the international interference or whatsoever. I told you from the beginning of this program that I don't believe in international best practice because everything that happens in every society has a particular way of handling it. Where you are coming from, there's a native food that you so much love.
True.
And there's this particular food from my place you I so much love.
As well.
So it's very, very peculiar to me. So handling insecurity from the local perspective is the best. And that is why I even support state policing.
So it brings it down to the grassroots. But let's take it back, still on international issues or, having to deal with this internationally, right? Recently, there were calls or there were reports that France was building a military base somewhere in Africa. I don't know if it's even Nigeria to be precise, and some people were kicking against it. The French president, rather, came out and said that before some of these African countries got independence, they already had military base established in some of those territories. That right now what you're doing is becoming ungrateful. That those military bases that they established is exactly what helped some African countries get the kind of independence that they eventually got. Now, if France is putting up a military base, for example, in Nigeria, right? Should there be any cause for concern?
Why would Nigeria even give them opportunity to do that?
Because
Nigeria is a sovereign nation.
We have not been able to do it.
It's a sovereign. Well, that they are building base doesn't exactly mean that it's a remedy to us. And what Africans should actually know, especially the politicians should know, is that the foreigners would give you cake with right hand, but they are collecting something from you with the other side. So the base that they are building, we shouldn't even allow, because Nigerians can handle their problem. Who don't even, Africans in particular, in general, can handle their problem. If Africans will look inward, African leaders will look inward and understand the potentials that Africans have got, the Europeans and Americans and all the foreign lands will be coming to Africa to beg us for food. They will come and beg us for food. So Africans we need not to worry over that. Besides, they cannot just build such in your soil if you didn't permit that.
I mean,
so maybe you permitted them.
So
maybe they discover that you are so weak and you cannot even stand your ground to say no to this, no to this, no to this. A certain president, before he died, I have forgotten this man's Zimbabwe president, the late I've forgotten his name. Each time you talk about Africa, and even in front of the white people, he will always stand and showcase the stuff that is made as an African man. But the current African people, leaders cannot, because all the time they are running to World Bank, they are running to IMF, asking them for this, asking them for that. And by the time there are some things that they need to stand up against, they will not be able to do
because
that.
Because by the time World Bank has given you $500 billion 19 times, how would you stand up and say no? We wouldn't allow our currency depreciate.
Yesterday it was actually adored on the newspapers that there was some money that were repatriated, Desiani Gates, about $50-something million. And the people that sent the money back to Nigeria coffers recommended to Nigeria, suggested to Nigeria, advised Nigeria on what it should be used for. A sovereign nation advising us. Are they supposed to? They are not supposed to. It's our money. We know exactly where and how we're going to use it.
And we
That
have
is the best
plenty
for
things
us.
to do
We
with
have
it.
plenty things to do with
It's
it.
not like we need their suggestion.
So my concern is that African leaders have not actually looked inward to see the potentials in Africa. If France is building whatever, it's because you permitted them to do that.
Because you permitted them.
If you permitted them, I can't come to your space to build anything that is so desired. Nigeria is a sovereign nation as well as France or whatever nation that you can mention.
Do you understand?
So
but over time, we've had presidents who would say, yo, we are calling on the United States government, we're calling on the UK, we're calling on France to help us fight insecurity. We've tried our best, and then it seems like our best isn't good enough. We've seen calls
of course,
like that.
We have actually seen calls like that.
So could this be one of such?
Because we have not actually looked inward. Because we have not actually gone down to the grassroots to know exactly the cause of this. What exactly is the problem with most? There are nations where you don't have security. You don't have insecurity problem.
True.
Switzerland, they don't have problem with that. Nations
at all.
They don't disturb over things. Like, they don't have problem with that.
Nobody.
But the problem with us here is that we have failed to invest in our human resources.
Which is supposed to be a blessing.
Which is supposed to be a blessing. That is exactly the first point of call in handling problem. The government alike, the philanthropists alike, the individuals alike. I just told you then, if you are taking your child overseas, thinking that you are giving your child a better future, don't forget that upon return to Nigeria, that child either returns as a human or returns as a corpse. If he returns as a human, that child is coming back to those people
that he
left on the streets, unattended to. Tell me how he's going to survive with that. Will that your child actually live alone? He must need people around him.
So that 5-year-old now that you are taking abroad, and you say you want to take him out early enough, right? There's nothing bad about it.
Nothing bad about that. I'm not jealous.
You have taken him. But there's another 5-year-old somewhere.
Yes.
Who cannot go to school, who has been subjected to being an Almajiri at 5. If your child comes back 20 years later, it's going to be 25.
It's coming back to me.
The Almajiri is also 25.
It's coming back to me, the same person.
And they will be in the same society.
It's coming back to me then. So how do you think that your child is going to comfortable? Okay, even if he desired to use domestic staff, who are the domestic staff you are using? Who is the gate man you are using? Who is the cook you are using? Who is the security man? Probably the offsprings of the Almajiris that you have actually born. I'm not actually saying the Almajiris are good, the northern system of their own education, Us in the other side of Nigeria would see Almajiri as something bad, but it is not so.
It's actually education.
Almajiri is a form of education.
It is.
But people actually misquote that's for people that are vulnerable, that is used for something. It is not so.
No.
It's a form of education for their own. So what we are trying to say is that those people on the street that you are ignoring, not investing in them. And as I'm not talking about politicians alone.
No.
I'm talking about vote that same man that can afford up to 1 million naira in his pocket as you speak now. The money you have, the resources you have, the people around you, how are you investing in them? Because that's the only way we can begin to curtail this and it gets down. Otherwise, of course, we are all in Nigeria. And I don't even know whether the prayer of things getting easy for Nigerians should be continue to be prayed or that things will continue to get hard, because I don't even know the way Nigeria is actually going to tomorrow.
We have been prayed. So I don't know if it still has to do with prayer. There's nothing prayer cannot change.
We'll keep praying anyway.
But I've always said it before now. I'm like, there's a place of God and there's a place of man. God will show you your wife. It's not him that will come and help you get her pregnant.
This side of Africa, and the side of the world, we know we are so religious, but we're not God-fearing. How do you become a God-fearing person? By understanding that person sitting next to you is the image and likeness of God.
Just as you are, image and likeness of God.
So how are you investing on that person?
If you wouldn't prick yourself with a needle, how would you prick someone else? In fact, how would you even have the mind to use machete
on another person?
On someone else's head.
Person.
But you cannot stand needle. To choke you, the all choke injection, now you're going to shout. But that's saying you go and check out. Some people, they be kidnappers, right? Wielding AK-47. But when they want collect injection, 95 people below them.
Nigeria government is trying, but we need to try more.
We need to do better.
The number of youths on the streets, the number of youths unattended to, boys and girls alike. We used to think that crime is only for the boys.
No.
But the girls are involved.
I mean,
look at what's happening with One Chance now.
You see how?
A used woman to
They will
confuse
put
you.
one woman or two
Because
inside.
they have recruited her, they have brainwashed her, they have taught her, and she thinks that what she's doing is the
It's
best.
the way to go.
And they think that once she's there, you
Business
will
will
think
move.
that it is
You
easy.
think
You
it's
will not
safe.
suspect
You will not
them.
suspect.
You use her, and she has her heart, her mind, her spirit have been hardened, and she will be used for that, and you will fall the victim. So what we are trying to say here today, the message we are passing is that all hands should be on deck. There is need for an alternative to all that is happening. Crime is becoming something that is becoming a monster.
Sure.
The way it's happening in Nigeria now, and hard times and rest of them is even beginning to worsen the whole thing.
True.
Parents are not even there to inculcate the family value to
Into
their children.
Workers
Parents are
taking them
busy.
away.
In the morning, the father will leave. In the afternoon,
It's
the mother,
gone.
nobody is there. The
It's
streets
gone.
is the one formulating the activities and tendency and the thinking of a child.
The television
The
is
socialization
also-
of the internet as well, and the rest
That's
of them
taking over.
taking over. Nannies and maids are the one taking over.
Doing
The
less
family
things,
value
yeah.
that we know about then growing up had disappeared. So why won't we begin to see what is happening now? Alternative way of solving this problem is the only way out. The shooting, the gun, the imprisonment, even sometimes even when one is in prison, he will end up coming out being a hardened criminal as well.
So we'll just keep
It's
going
also
around
part
the
of
circle of
it's also
buying-
part of the things we are actually talking about. Looking inward in the prison, in the correctional service.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody will go there, he will just have 10% of criminality in him. Coming out, it will grow up to 70%. What
Because he
exactly
has
is
gone
this?
in there to
What
meet some
exactly
other
is the
hardened
problem?
criminals who
What
have
exactly
taught
is the
him or
problem?
told him other ways that he did not even know. They are worse than what he was doing, or smarter than what he was
Yes,
doing
of
before.
course.
And then he comes out
Hardened
worse
criminal,
than
worse
he went
what
in.
went in. So it's a concern for everybody. It's a concern. The system needs
Right.
to look inward. The government need to look inward. Individuals also need to look inward. We need to find an alternative to this menace that is ravaging us called crime. And I'm not actually talking about violent crime alone. In Nigeria, we see corruption as a normal thing. But corruption is crime.
Sure, absolutely.
Corruption is a crime.
Absolutely.
And that is why we have EFCC and ICPC to look after those people doing that. But here, we see it as a normal thing. We discuss crime based on violent crime. We don't discuss crime based on those people that are using pen to siphon the treasury of this
In
nation.
fact, we even celebrate them.
We celebrate them.
When your uncle enter
We
government, they
celebrate
say,
them.
it's our turn. It's our turn for us to chop. That chopping, not if you know.
Not tiffin. If your uncle happened to be a chairman of a local government, probably he's a just man.
Yeah.
He's a man that wouldn't want to soil his hand or
Exactly.
something like that. You and I will go to him and say, uncle, others don't go
When he
there.
reach your turn,
It's your
now you
turn, no.
come say,
Because you no go
you
chop
no go
again.
chop.
Go get your national cake. And I am an advocate that will begin to write the story surrounding this national cake because it's a problem. The thinking surrounding national cake is corruption.
In fact, you know what?
It's corruption.
That's actually a topic on its own. Because
It's a
that,
topic
that
on
national cake topic.
The concept national cake.
That concept
is a
national
problem.
cake is going to take a whole
It's a
discussion
problem.
altogether.
We
And I
need
think
to-
it's very important
we
that
need
we
to
have
purge
that
ourselves from
discussion.
that,
We need to
yes.
have that discussion. When did we get there?
How did we
Who
get there?
introduced national
Yes.
cake? Who started it? How did we not get to the point
If
where
we want
everybody
this
believes
nation
that
to survive,
we must collect from the national cake? Do you get? We'll come to that. But
Yes.
wrapping things up right now, right? Because talking about, criminal justice system and reforms and the rest of that, we cannot leave the judiciary out of it.
Yes.
And then Nigerians, to a large extent, seem to be losing hope
yes,
and
the confidence is no longer there.
in the judiciary. So how can we, get that confidence to come back and actually get the judiciary to work the way it is supposed to?
Well, the system needs actually to baptize itself, and the people that we are being recruited to take the helm of affairs there we need to actually scrutinize them very well, because when the head is okay, the downward will be okay too.
follow,
But sometimes when you have a round peg in a square hole, it becomes a problem. So the judiciary, they are trying. The stress also is there, but we need to begin to see the recruitment pattern of those that handles that, because they say that judiciary is the last hope of a common man. But is that common man really having that hope? It is called the temple of justice. Is that temple really a place of justice? So we need to look at that and the selection of leaders that takes the mantle, the affairs of that place, to see the caliber of persons that were put in there, people with better conscience to see that things are changed, or are they people that are going there just to siphon their own resources, see it as an opportunity for them and go. So the recruitment system of the judiciary need to be looked inward to see how we can begin to select them to work for us.
Well, it's quite a broad subject matter we're talking about today, and if we continue, we could go on and on and on. Even if we're narrowing it down to Nigeria, there's so many other aspects in Nigeria and about Nigeria that really needs reform when it comes to its criminal justice system.
The police needs reform.
Reforms,
a lot of
correctional
things,
services, the reforms. Is it in the way they are being fed? Is it in the way you keep them? You put like 2,000 people in one. Come on, there's a lot that really needs to be done. But we are out of time. Thank you so much for being a part of it. My guest has been Ekwuene John Paul. He's a crime prevention analyst and also a criminal justice reform analyst. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
Having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hopefully we have this in, we have it a lot often so that we can touch as many issues as are necessary.
Certainly.
Thanks
Thank you very much
for always following us on Owigo TV. If you haven't, just go ahead, click on the subscription icon and then post notification icon as well. Tell somebody to tell somebody. My name is Owigo, and we out.